There are cases that disappear after the verdict, and then there are cases that refuse to stay closed. For years, people thought the Alex Murdaugh murder trial had reached its final chapter. A powerful South Carolina lawyer, a wife and a son found dead. A courtroom watched by the entire country, a guilty verdict, 2 life sentences, and then, sadly, everything changed. In May of 2026, the South Carolina Supreme Court threw out Alex Murdaugh murder conviction and ordered a new trial. Not because the court said he was innocent, not because the deaths of Maggie and Paul were any less real, but because the court found that the jury process itself had been damaged. And now, just as the case is preparing to return to court, Alex's defense attorney has made one sentence that instantly pushed the case back into the spotlight. When asked about possible new evidence, he said, "We've got some great stuff." Then he added, "We're not going to tell that before trial." That one line is why this case is suddenly everywhere again. Because now the question is no longer just what happened at Mosul. The question is, what does the defense know now that the public doesn't? To understand why these new updates matter, we have to go back to the night that made this case famous. In June of 2021, Maggie and Paul were found dead at the family's hunting estate in Colleton County, South Carolina. That property was known as Mosul. It was private, rural, quiet, the kind of place where a powerful family could live away from the eyes of the public. But that night turned Mosul into one of the most examined crime scenes in America. Alex was not just anyone. He came from a family deeply connected to the South Carolina legal world. For generations, the Murdaugh name carried power in the region. So when his wife and son were killed, the story immediately became bigger than one family tragedy. It became a story about influence, money, secrets, trusts, and the fall of a man who had once stood inside the legal system, only to later become the person on trial. At the original trial, prosecutors argued that Alex killed Maggie and Paul to distract from his financial crimes and personal scandal. The defense denied that he murdered them, and for weeks the courtroom became the center of national attention. Every detail was watched, every word was studied, every expression was analyzed. Then, in 2023, the jury found him guilty. For many people, that looked like the end, but it was not the end. It was only the beginning of a much stranger chapter. After the guilty verdict, Alex was sentenced to life in prison for the murders. But even after that conviction, there was another story happening in the background. His defense team began raising questions about the trial itself, not just about the evidence, not just about the witnesses, but about whether the jury had been properly influenced. The focus became Becky Hill, the former Colleton County Clerk of Court. A clerk of court is not supposed to shape a verdict. A clerk is not supposed to guide jurors toward one side. A clerk is not supposed to comment on the credibility of the accused person. But the South Carolina Supreme Court later found that Hill made improper comments to jurors during the trial. The court said Alex's rights to a fair trial by an impartial jury was violated. That is the key. The court did not say the killing did not happen. The court did not clear Alex. The court did not say the original evidence meant nothing. The court said the process was broken. And in criminal case, process matter, because if a jury influenced by someone outside the evidence, the verdict becomes unsafe. That is why the murder conviction were overturned. That is why a new trial was ordered. And that's why this case is back. The name Becky Hill is now one of the most important names in the Alex case. During the original trial, Hill was the Colleton County Clerk of Court. That rule placed her close to the courtroom process, close to the jury, close to the machinery of justice, and according to the South Carolina Supreme Court, that made her alleged conduct even more serious. The court found that Hill's comment challenged Alex's credibility and went to the heart of the case. That mattered because Alex's credibility was central to the original trial. He testified. The jury had to decide whether they believed him. So, if someone connected to the court process made comments that damaged his credibility in the eyes of jurors, the problem was not small. It was not just a technical issue. It touched the foundation of the verdict. The Supreme Court described Hill's conduct in extremely strong language. The court said the effort to undermine the jury process was unprecedented in South Carolina. That is why this ruling shocked the case so hard, because the appeal was not only about one man, it was about whatever trial watched by an entire country had been fair. And once the court answered that question, the whole case opened again. One of the most striking details comes from Dick Harpootlian's own explanation. He said, the defense first learned about possible jury interference after a call from an internal juror. According to Harpootlian, that alternate juror said Becky Hill had said things she should not have said. That was the moment the defense realized they needed to speak with the jurors. Think about that. The trial was already over. The verdict had already been announced. The world had already reacted. But then, one call raised a question that would later help change the future of the entire case. Harpootlian also spoke about juror Mira Crosby, known publicly as the egg juror. He said she gave testimony alleging that Hill privately pursued her during the trial. Harpootlian claimed Hill took Crosby out of the jury room, brought her to her office, and pursued her about Alex. These are serious claims, and they are part of the reason the case moved from a murder conviction story into a jury interference story. That is what makes this case so unusual. Most true crime cases focus only on the crime scene. This one now has two battlegrounds: what happened to Maggie and Paul and what happened inside the courtroom after that. Then came the new phrase, "We've got some great stuff." That is what Dick Harpootlian said when asked whether the defense planned to introduce new evidence. He did not explain what it was. He did not describe it. He did not say whether it was forensic evidence, witness evidence, records, experts analysis, or something else. He only said they had some great stuff. Then he said they would not reveal it before trial. That's matter because in high-profile cases like this, every public sentence becomes a signal. The defense wants people to know they believe the next trial will not look exactly like the first one, but they are not showing their hand. That creates suspense. It also creates danger for anyone covering the story, because we cannot claim this new evidence proves anything. We cannot say it clears anyone. We cannot say it destroyed the prosecution's case. We only know what has been confirmed. The defense says they have something. They are not revealing it yet, and the retrial is now expected. That is the story, not a solved mystery, not a secret. A case that has returned to court with a new legal pressure, new strategy, and an answered question. The retrial does not mean Alex walks free. He remains behind bar because he pleaded guilty to financial crimes. That is important. Even though the murder convictions were overturned, he is still serving prison time connected to those financial crimes. But the murder case itself is now open again, and the stakes could be even higher than before. South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson said prosecutors are considering all legal options. That includes the death penalty. During the original trial, prosecutors did not seek the death penalty. They secured guilty verdict that resulted in life sentences without parole. Now, after the Supreme Court ruling, Wilson said the case is back to square one. That means the state has to decide how aggressive it wants to be in a second murder trial. This creates a new level of tension. For the prosecutions, a retrial means rebuilding a massive case under public pressure. For the defense, it means attacking the original trial, challenging the evidence, and possibly introducing whatever Harpootlian is now teasing. For Maggie and Paul's loved one, it means reliving the case again. And for the public, it means one of America's most watched true crime cases is not finished, not even close. This case is emotional, it is famous, it is dramatic, but it also requires caution because there are two truths that must be held at the same time. First, Maggie and Paul were killed. Their deaths are not entertainment. They were real people, a mother and a son. A family was destroyed. Second, Alex Murdaugh conviction has been overturned and he is now entitled to a new trial. That does not mean the case is solved in a new direction. It means the court found the first trial was not fair enough to stand. Those are not the same things, and that is where many people will get confused. Some will hear new trial and think it means innocence. It does not. Others will hear new evidence and think it means a secret bombshell has already been proven. It has not. The only confirmed fact is that Harpootlian says the defense has additional material it may use. The public does not yet know what that material is. So the honest question is not, did this new evidence change everything? The honest question is, what will the defense reveal when the new trial begins? That is the question keeping this story alive. A second trial would not simply be a replay. It would happen in a different atmosphere. The first trial happened before the Supreme Court ruling. The second trial would happen after the world learned that the original jury process had been compromised. That changed the mood around everything. Jury selection could become more difficult because this case has been covered for years. Every potential juror may already know the name Alex. Every side we know that outside influence is now one of the most sensitive issues in the case. The defense will likely focus heavily on trial fairness, credibility, and whatever new evidence they believe is important. The prosecution will have to present its case again, while also dealing with the fact that the first verdict was erased because of outside influence on juror. And somewhere behind all that is the question of whether Alex will testify again. Harpootlian said that decision has not yet been made. That is another major piece of suspense, because in the original trial, Alex taking the stand become one of the biggest moments. If he testifies again, the courtroom could become a national event again. If he does not, that will also raise questions. Either way, the second trial will not begin as a clean page. It begins with history, it begins with controversy, it begins with the defense saying they have something the public has not seen. The Alex Murdaugh case once looked finished. A verdict had been reached, a sentence had been given, the country had moved on to the next headline. But now the case is open again. The Supreme Court has ordered a new trial. The prosecution is weighing serious option. The defense is saying there is a new material, and the public is left with one sentence echoing over the entire case. We've got some great stuff. Maybe it will matter, maybe it will not, maybe it will change the direction of the retrial, maybe it will become just another line in a case already full of shocking turns. But one thing is clear, the next chapter of Alex's case will not begin quietly. It begins with a family tragedy, a verdict erased, a courtroom scandal, a possible death penalty decision, and the defense team saying that they have something they are not ready to reveal. So now the question is simple. When this case returns to court, what will they show the jury this time, and will it change everything? If you follow this case, keep one thing in mind. A new trial does not erase the victims, and an overturned conviction does not answer every question. It only means the case must be tried again and the rules the court believes are fair. Maggie and Paul remain at the center of this story, and until the next trial happens, the only responsible things to do is follow confirmed court records, verified reporting, and official updates. Because in a case this famous, rumors travel fast, but facts are what matter. Thank you.